you have to look at fear and respect it first and foremost, right? And understand that if you're in a leadership role, your fear is projected to your subordinates as well as your followers, right? Because as I said earlier, it's contagious.
What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, and today I have a brother on here with me. He has a lifetime of experience, but he's got an interesting story as well, and he's going to bring his interesting story to you and to me and to all of us. And but he's also got a book that he's actually about to release pretty soon, and we're going to dive into that a good little bit. But the guy that I have on today is none other than Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Quinn. Anthony is a graduate of Slippery Rock University and a 25-year veteran of the United States Army. He's a husband, a father of 2 daughters, and he's the author of the soon-to-be-released book, Cruel America's Slow Burn to Conscious Dysfunction. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
But fellas, I want to welcome you to my man, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Quinn. Anthony, thank you so much. Well, Lieutenant Colonel, I'm sorry. I forget. I'm not military, so I have to work on the protocol here.
Hey, that's okay, man. What I would like to do, like you said, it's a conversation. So, hey, we're friends. We've been talking for a while. Just call me Tony.
Okay.
For this time that we share together. All right?
All right, that works, my man. Well, I gave a little quick bio, but real talk, the bio that I got from you was like multiple pages. It's like a book in itself. So I'm going to allow you to kind of fill in the gaps and talk a little bit about, your background, who you are, and, any shout-outs that you may have, my man.
Well, I guess I will just start out with the shout-outs first, and I just want to go through and thank God for continuing to mold me and to stretch me into the person that I'm meant to be. And first and after God, I would like to just thank my wife, Carmen, because without her, my successes will be few.
That's right. Smart man, brother.
So, and my 2 lovely daughters, Kendall and Kennedy, they're pleasant, and they're pleasant reminders of what I do and why I do it. And so I'm enjoying them every day of my life, and even though they give me headaches, I'm just being real here.
You're a father, brother. We understand.
But I enjoy every minute of it. And so from there, I got a couple more shout-outs, but I will say those to the end, and I'll just jump into who I am, a little bit about me. There's 5 of us, 5 siblings, born to Carl and Cecilia Quinn, and we were born in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I am the 4th oldest of the kids, of 3 boys and 2 girls. And my life was, pretty normal as I saw it, growing up in Erie, Pennsylvania, in the projects. That's where we started. And my father worked hard and got us into a middle-class neighborhood. And, of course, at that point in time, we lived where there weren't a lot of black families. We were one of 2 black families in the neighborhood where we lived, and we grew up there, exposed to a lot of great things, the schools, and both elementary and middle school. And I was an athlete, and I've excelled in sports, wrestling and football, and those things right there, those were the vehicles that propelled me into college. And there in college, that's where my life really began and took off. But before I got there, there was a little hiccup.
Okay.
Or as I entered, let's just say there, the little hiccup came when I lost my scholarship at Youngstown State University. And it was a football scholarship. I lost it because I had a big mouth. And
hold on, pause. You know, we got to deviate a little bit because you said I had a big mouth, therefore I lost my scholarship to Youngstown State. Like I know you're in the middle of talking your backstory here. I got to hear a little bit about that, man.
Well, I was one of 2 athletes recruited out of the state of Pennsylvania to Youngstown State. And with that came the responsibility of fulfilling my role as that athlete that they brought in from the outside. Because in Ohio, they're known for football. And they don't have to recruit outside a lot to have talent. They have talent. And I was just honored that I was one of 2 that time in 1988 when I graduated from high school to be recruited there. And so when I got there, the coach told me automatically seniors play. I understood that. However, being aggressive, I wanted to get out there and play. And the bottom line is, you know, I was told that I was going to play on kickoffs, and we were playing a team that was not at our level. And basically I didn't get in, and you know, so I thought I would show the coach by saying that I could take my scholarship and my talent somewhere else. And that other scholarship was the ROTC scholarship, in which I thought, hey, it's a government scholarship, I can take it somewhere else. And I shot off my mouth, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I returned home that winter, that Christmas break, and I was watching football, Canadian football, on TV. And my father came in with some groceries, and he put them down in the kitchen. And he called in to the living room and said, hey, what high school football team or football game are you watching? And basically, at that point, that statement triggered something in me because I was contemplating going to Canada to play football.
Right out of high school, like from that moment at Youngstown, when you left there, you were contemplating going to play in Canada. Okay.
Yes. And when my dad asked me what high school football game was I watching, that triggered something in me, and I said, you know what? I'm going to the military. And I left shortly thereafter, and I was at Fort Knox.
Really? So literally
training.
So leaving. So you started at Youngstown. You know, my uncle used to say, you know, you're smelling yourself. So you started smelling yourself, so to speak, running your mouth, and you basically said, I can take my scholarship elsewhere. And your coach pretty much said, fine, brother, go ahead and take it and go on about your business. And so you left Youngstown, and at that point, you were considering going to play in Canada. But something about a conversation with your dad triggered something, and from that moment you basically made a pivot and completely went in the other direction and went into the military from that point.
Yes.
Wow.
That's exactly what happened.
Wow.
And my mom didn't want me to go initially because my oldest brother was already in the military, so I wanted to pull him into the military. And she said, no, you're going to be the first one to go to college out of the family. And so I went. And but because I screwed it up, I had to figure out a way to fix it.
Okay.
And so going to the military felt like a way to fix it. And I sorted things out while I was in basic training and AIT, that's Advanced Individual Training. And about the time I went through that whole process, I came out, got back into school, but not Youngstown State, but Slippery Rock University.
Okay.
And it wasn't until the administration office sent a bill home as opposed to sending it to my apartment. My mom figured it out then that I wasn't at the school in which she dropped me off at. So I kept that a secret for almost a year and a half.
So hold on. So your mom thought you were at another university?
Yes, she dropped me off at Youngstown State University. In the summer or the fall of 1988. And basically, however, I lost that scholarship.
Okay.
Like I said, both of them, and from there, I hid the fact that I was in the Army from my mom.
Hold on. See, that's the part I'm sitting here like, hold up. See, I thought you went home for like Christmas break, you know, and you had already made it known that you were leaving Youngstown State. So you actually went home for Christmas break your freshman year in college and didn't tell them that you had basically lost your scholarship at Youngstown. So you just left from there and went to the military without telling your folks that you did that, correct?
You are correct.
And then from there, after doing basic, you then enrolled at Slippery Rock. All this time, your folks thought you were at Youngstown State.
Yes, sir.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
And they didn't realize that you were now at Slippery Rock, which is in Pennsylvania, correct?
Correct.
They did not realize you were at Slippery Rock until a bill got home, and it said, you know, the heading on it said Slippery Rock University, not Youngstown State University. How did that go down? Like, what happened when that hit the fan and your folks found out that this thing that they thought was going on is totally different? They thought you were going to be the college boy, but you in essence are still a college boy, but you're also a military guy now, and you're at a different university than they initially sent you off to go to. Man, like, hold up, dude. Like, how did that go down? Because I'm a parent, and I can only imagine, you know, if I drop my, you know, my little girl or my little boy off at the University of Tennessee, they come home for Christmas like everything is fine, but then come spring semester, I get a bill from, you know, the University of Memphis, and I'm like, whoa, player. What's going on? Like, how did that go down, man? Talk to me.
So you know how parents are. So what I was trying to do, I would call my mom from the phone booth. I wouldn't call her from the apartment complex because back in the day, you know, you got star 69 and then you can just pull up the phone number, right? So I figured calling from a phone booth, she wouldn't do that. And so I called regularly once a week, just giving her updates. And this one particular week, I called, and she says, the normal conversation, how you doing, how's school, are you eating enough? And I was like, yes, ma'am, I'm doing great. And then she says, where did we drop you off again? And I was like, what do you mean, where did you drop me off again? What school are you attending? And I was like, Mom, you know, Youngstown State University, you know? Now, I'm a parent now.
Okay.
And I know when I ask a question like that, I know.
You know the answer.
I know the answer.
That's right. Yep.
So I didn't catch it, of course. I'm a child, and I didn't know my mom knew that I was lying at that point. And so she says, well, I could have sworn that I dropped you off at Youngstown State University. But when I looked in the mail, I received a bill from Slippery Rock University. So tell me, where are you? And I said, well, Mom, that bill was not supposed to show up there. I left Youngstown State University. And she said, why? And I told her that I got kicked off the football team, and I lost my scholarship, both of them, ROTC and the football scholarship. And I was too embarrassed to tell her that I did so. And I was too embarrassed to tell my father the same thing. And of course, you know how parents are. The first child going to college, and everybody expected me to go to college and play football and be successful. And because I never had trouble in school, when I say never, nothing major.
I got you.
So they expected me to do what I set out to do, and I failed. And so I was so embarrassed, and so I had to correct it. And so I told her that, and she was upset, of course, because she's communicating to all her friends and family that her son is down there at Youngstown State University doing well, and here I am, you know, at Fort Knox, Fort Sam Houston, Texas, out there training, running around, shooting weapons, doing the very thing that she didn't want me to do. And so she wasn't happy about it, of course, but I convinced her that since I've gotten myself into this and I'm working myself out of this, I'm able to go the rest of the way by myself. And she said, well, okay, since you have created this problem for yourself, then you're a young man now, and you should be able to handle that bill by yourself.
Wow.
And I said, okay, Mom, I will do just that.
Now, at that moment, because you said you went to Fort Knox, but then you ended up at Slippery Rock. So was it just, did you like enroll in like the reserves or something, or how did that work from the standpoint of you going to, like, it sounds basic training or something, and then end up at Slippery Rock? And so were you then on an ROTC scholarship or on the military's dime at that point, or how did that work?
Yes, so I was in the reserves. I enrolled in the reserves, or enlisted. And when I came back from basic training and advanced individual training, AIT, from Fort Sam Houston, Texas, my first thought was, I got to get back into school.
Oh, okay.
So I went and enrolled in Slippery Rock University, and because I was still trying to play football, I got on the football team, and from there I was directed into the ROTC program, and I enrolled in the ROTC program, and from there I continued to plot my way to success by graduating and then being commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army.
Man, that's that part of the story is fascinating. Of all the conversations that we've had over the last couple of months, I never heard that. And so that part is extremely fascinating to me, because the concept of Black Fathers Now is bringing the village to the brothers. So we bring the village in the form of insight, inspiration, wisdom, but we also pull from the journeys of various brothers who have a unique story. And I think that part of your history is extremely unique, because I think that that concept of being too embarrassed to tell the truth plagues a lot of us.
Yes.
Right? Because, and I think for some, it's interesting, it plagues us to the point in which it causes us to make bad decisions, whereas with you, it might not have been the decision that anyone had planned for you from the jump, so to speak, but it ended up being something that you could learn from, that you could build from, and then leads you kind of into this, this journey that you're in now, where you spent 25 years, in the military. You're currently a lieutenant colonel, accolades all over the world, doing this, doing that. Your father, a husband, but then now you're also an author. And it's interesting how things come full circle, and how all of these things kind of lead you to a different stage. Like every part of our life, God kind of sets up to prepare us for the next step in life. And so it's pretty fascinating to just kind of go back and really dive into your backstory a little bit, because I'm really interested in jumping into a few aspects of, cruel America's slow burn to conscious dysfunction, right? And truthfully, and it's like, first off, how did you come up with that title of a book? Like, what made you come up with that title?
Well, what made me come up with that title is actually just watching the news and day in, day out. And I think it was John McCain that said that this was a dysfunction that the United States couldn't work its way out of debt, and he mentioned something to that effect, and that just stuck with me, the word dysfunction. And because he said dysfunction, to me, that means you have to be conscious of the dysfunction in certain aspects. I mean, you could stumble into something and not know that this is dysfunctional.
That's right.
Like you can enter into a relationship with another person and not know that they are dysfunctional or their family is dysfunctional. But once you become aware of it, you're conscious of it. And so then at that point, you have a choice to make. You can either stay in it or you can remove yourself out of it.
That's right.
And so as I contemplated on the book, and I had time on my hands because I was recovering from a surgery that I had, this just kept coming back to my mind, dysfunction. And so I said, well, we got to be conscious of this dysfunction because this is just not happening.
That's right.
People got to know about it. And so that's where I kind of pulled the title of the book, and it was just something that John McCain was just talking about when he was being interviewed, but he used the word dysfunction, and so I just added conscious to it.
And then the beginning of it is Cruel America's Slow Burn to Conscious Dysfunction. And to me, it's interesting, with your background, with your story, with, the fact that, you spent time around the world in different countries and various missions and all this kind of stuff. Where did that part of the title come from? Cruel America's Slow Burn to Conscious Dysfunction.
Well, as the word cruel came from just the history of America, how it made its economic might, where it came from. And, I tell people I'm a newbie to this, because my life, as I briefly went over it, was pretty much, normal as I saw it. I didn't have a lot of resistance presented to me as I was coming up. There were some, but not a lot. But as I look back on America's history, America came in. There were some people here already. They displaced them, right? They didn't obtain land fairly from them. Then, as they figured out to deal with them, the indigenous people of this country, as they kind of marginalized them, they realized that, hey, we need to, build this economic might that we have. We have all this land, and so, you have the chattel slavery that came into play.
That's right.
And so the truth about that is not really talked about in our schools, in our classrooms. And so, again, this was cool that, you take people from a different country and you place them here in a country that they don't know, and yet you utilize them or brutalize them to make a profit. Now, again, I tell people I'm not an expert by no means on any of the stuff that I talk about. I say I'm curious. That's how I learn.
That's right.
And so as long as I'm curious, I will seek out the truth wherever it is and try to put it together for myself as well as for my children, my daughters.
And also for your readers, because you formulated a book, and it's interesting. So, Cruel America: Slow Burn to Conscious Dysfunction. We're going to jump into a couple of topics that are discussed in your book, and also we want to kind of think about these from the perspective of how they apply to us as black men, as black fathers who are currently living, within this particular system. One of the concepts that you discuss is perception. Who's responsible? Perception. Who's responsible? What do you mean by that? And dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So perception and who's responsible. Really, everybody's responsible for perception. However, let's just think about where we grew up, right? So perception is formed by the microcosm or your neighborhood from which you grew up in, right? So you have that impacting your psyche, and then if you have parents, right, they're also educating you as to what your perception should be of others, or the society outside your neighborhood or outside your intimate close friends, right?
That's right.
So perception is already being formed, right? Now, when you engage outside your local community, now there's some type of clash or inner conflict that's going to occur, right? And so, as I say in the book, you have to be aware of these things happening. And once you become aware of it, then you have to make decisions, because you're going to come to this crossroads and you're going to have to make decisions about what you believe, what you don't believe, what's true and what's not true.
But what's interesting though, perception, when I think about perception, I think about simply how folks view you, right? Like how you are being portrayed, like what story is being told. And so when I hear perception, who's responsible, I honestly believe that we are all responsible. But the thing is, we are just now getting to a time in which, things like social media and, having the internet available gives more normal people access to help create that perception or create that narrative or tell their own story. Because if you think about it, historically speaking, if you were not one of a few people who were key influencers in the world or in your country that you're currently living in, you did not have the means to really tell your story, right? It was the big networks were the ones that told the story. It was the big entities, the big countries, big companies that were able to, to create what it is they want to be portrayed about a particular group of people or about a country or about a segment or about a city or about a state. Those folks had all the power. That power has now been somewhat decentralized, because if you look in just about everyone's pocket, they have a smartphone. And on that smartphone, you have the access to, create stories and movies and videos. I was listening to an interview the other day, and it was talking about how Eddie Murphy, it was a guy talking about a conversation with Eddie Murphy, and how he said Eddie Murphy doesn't feel sorry for anybody or any content creator nowadays, because he said, the first movies that I made, you have a phone with a camera in your pocket more powerful than any camera that I had on the first sets of the movies that I made in the past, right? And so from the standpoint of the technology, with the access, we all can tell our own story, but then we also have the ability to help reshape the perception of, of ourselves out to the world. And to your point, I believe personally that it is our responsibility. You think about black men, it is our responsibility to tell our story, right? It is our responsibility to show the balance off the narrative of what's being told about black men in America and around the world. You know, because if we allow major entities to tell the story, then they're only going to show one side of us. But they don't realize that we are a diverse group of people. We bring a lot of different perspectives to the table. Yes, are there some bad apples in the bunch? Absolutely. But guess what?
Yes.
There are also some awesome apples in the bunch that balance the narrative. So it's our job to spend time also shining light on those positive apples so that we have a balanced narrative and we get a fair shake when it comes to perception.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, perception, like you said, it's there, and I would tell you, though, perception is something that, if you talk about big media conglomerates, like our major media giants like CNN, Fox, and NBC, CBS, etc., the perception that they would like to control is that they want us as the American public to feed into the perception that that there's always turmoil in the world. There's always turmoil, and let's just say, you know, outside your front door, because that's what they lead with. You know, so they create this perception, and if you don't inform yourself that that is not really the true picture, right?
Ding, ding, ding. That's it.
You're gonna buy into that.
And you know what?
And so
you hit the nail on the head, and that's the importance of education. That's the importance of exposure. That's the importance of actually experiencing things. You know, we can read books all we want about various experiences, but until we actually go and experience them, we really don't have a true understanding of that particular experience.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So, you know, so you have to take a step back when you look at the media and what it is communicating on your TV screen or through a tweet. You really have to educate yourself and not buy it wholesale for what it is. You know?
That's right. That's right. And so it's interesting, you know, you mentioned perception, you know, who's responsible, but then another topic that you discuss in your book, you know, and this kind of ties into the same topic, but it's a little bit different. Optics is everybody's business. Optics is everybody's business. Talk a little bit about that.
So, optics is ultimately at the hand of the transmitter, right? So, so I'm the transmitter of the optics. Okay. So I want you to see that I have it all together. So I would dress a certain way. I want you to see that I drive a nice car, that I can speak well, so I use certain words, or that I am that I'm healthy. So anytime I want you to see a picture of me, I am doing something like healthy associated with it, like being in the gym or hiking, or you see a mountain in the background. So optics is everything. You don't really have to speak a lot, but optics. However, you got to understand that when the optics are shown, you have to pause for a second just to look at the picture and understand what's being transmitted to you. And those optics, okay, are done with the outsider, which is you or me, in mind. Okay? So, I mean, there's nothing new to that game. It's just you just got to be aware of it. Just don't buy into it, you know, immediately.
You know, and you mentioned optics are everybody's business, right? And
yes.
when I hear you say that, it's pretty interesting, and because when I think about optics, I try to make things simple, right? When I think about optics, I think about what is it that you see. right? And what you see sometimes is a mirage, right? You know, the mirage, you used to see those old cartoons where the cartoon character's out in the desert and he's thirsty. Then all of a sudden they have this illusion of this big lake right there in front of them. Then they get to the lake and there's nothing there. You know, it was a mirage. It was this whole illusion. And for some people, optics are that, because you have to really go beyond your eyes. And, you know, when I think about optics, you know, I think about it from the perspective of there is, in essence, you know, we have 5 senses, right? And your eyes or vision is just one of them. So what happens with the other 4 senses? You know, that thing that you see, did you also taste it? Did you hear it? You know, did you feel it? Did you have all these other senses, you know, involved with the process? Because it could just be an optical illusion, right? You have optics, right, but then you have optical illusion. And I think, to your point, mentioning that optics is everybody's business, we all have to be mindful of the images that we put out there, because regardless of whether the backstory or the background matches the optics, regardless of whether that happens or not, the vast majority of people don't take time to deep dive into what's going on, so they believe what they see. And so when you mention, you know, the perceptions that are being put out there, and, you know, I think about like international travel, you know, one of the things that benefits America is the fact that America hands down has the best PR in the world. Meaning, what we put out there to the world about us is shining. Meaning, when you go and visit other parts of the world, you know, they think that everything in America is just pretty and, you know, and awesome and perfect, and everybody is rich and drives, you know, lives in mansions and all that kind of stuff. But that's the optical illusion of what America is, because we do a good job portraying those optics to the world. Whereas other countries, which is interesting, and I'd like to get your take on this, when you go and visit other countries that are considered quote-unquote third world or lesser developed, and you get there and you're like, hold up, there are mansions over here too, and there are Mercedes and BMWs and things like that over here too. Yes, you have, you know, poverty, but you have poverty in America. But the thing is, the optics that country portrays to the rest of the world is not the same as, you know, we portray to the rest of the world. So therefore, there's not that balanced narrative.
Right, you're correct in that, and part of that is because they don't have, maybe the country doesn't possess the economic might that we possess, and so lacking that, they're not able to display the richness of their country and the beautiful places. I mean, I've been some places, you know, and I've seen some beautiful landscapes in those areas where, you know, where turmoil exists at the same time.
That's right.
So, so like I said, you know, optics is a thing that if you're not careful, you buy into it, and when you actually get there, or maybe get to touch it, feel it, you realize that it's not what it looked like. You know, once you see it up close. And maybe you have heard this saying before, like, don't judge me on how well I'm doing by looking at me, but look at my family to inform you of your judgment. Meaning, you know, if you see me, and you see me in dirty, grimy clothes, right, almost every day, you probably will think, hey, this guy is not doing so hot, you know. However, but if you look at my family, my children, they're well kept, they're well groomed, good manners. My house is, if you're welcome to come inside or to be around where I live, you'll notice that the indoors and outdoors are well kept. So I would say those optics are important. Now, I mean, like I said, optics aren't or isn't everything, but from that standpoint, and being a father, right, you're the leader of that house. You're the leader in your home. And you want to provide for your family the best way you know that you can.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things is that, hey, I want to ensure that my home, the surroundings for my kids or my children are safe,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is well kept. So those optics, you want to communicate to others that you're doing your job. You're staying on top of what you have responsibility for.
You know what? We're going to jump to the next topic, but, you know, my mom used to always say, you can be doing right, but if it don't look like you're doing right, you're going to have some problems. And so, and I think that literally kind of sums up what you're talking about when it comes to optics. You know, you do the right thing, you have the background, but we also, especially as black men, we need to spend some time making sure that the optics are right as well, because the reality is everybody's not going to take time to deep dive into your backstory. So what are you doing to help shape the perspective? What are you doing to not only do right, but to also help make sure that it looks like you're doing right as well? You know, and so that's extremely important, and I'm fascinated with that, man. That's good stuff. And the last topic from the book that we want to kind of jump in, because we don't want to give away too much. We want folks to actually, once it's released and everything, go out and buy the book. But one of the topics that you also touch on is fear is akin to us all. Fear is akin to us all. Please jump into that, my man.
So, I mean, fear is so powerful because it can take any form, and it's contagious once it happens, right? Mm-hmm. So to contain the power of fear, you got to disrupt it, right? So because if you don't disrupt it, it will literally stop us from living our lives, right? So you have to look at fear and respect it first and foremost, right? And understand that if you're in a leadership role, your fear is projected to your subordinates as well as your followers, right? Because as I said earlier, it's contagious. Mm-hmm. So it can cause things to go wrong for you, right? But if you respect it, and when I say respect it, I mean, you know, you move with caution, you act with prudence. That can help minimize it, as well as keep you alive. Mm-hmm. Because if you throw caution to the wind, and you say, "Hey, I'm not fearless," well, okay. If you throw fear out and you say, "I'm not fearful of anything," well, you also threw caution out, in which caution could help you stay alive, and it can help you thrive wherever you are. So I think that fear, if you respect it, it can keep you alive. It keeps you on your toes. It ensures that you're paying attention to the here and now. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So
it makes you know what's interesting though. It's like, you know, you think about fear, and a lot of times people run from fear, but at the end of the day, fear is there for a reason, right? And, you know, God made our bodies in such a unique way that, you know, we have this thing built inside of us called fight or flight, right? Fight or flight syndrome. So when something is, you know, when you become fearful of something, or you become nervous or excited, you know, your blood pressure rises, you know, all your systems get crazy, and your hormone levels kind of bounce around. But they do that so that you can basically jump into fight or flight, meaning you're either getting yourself prepared to either fight or to run. But that fear allows your body to jump into that. I guess my question to you, though, is, you know, fear is good. It's like the range of emotions that we all experience. But where is, like, that dividing line between embracing the fear of the moment versus living a fearful life?
Well, again, it's about acknowledgement of fear. That's where I think you do yourself good. When you acknowledge that you're scared, right? But at the same time, when you acknowledge to yourself that you're scared, you're afraid, But it also allows you to understand that you must be cautious from this point on, right? So you figure out a way to find that counterbalance to the fear so it doesn't paralyze you. So that you can take the necessary steps to do what you need to do.
Do you believe that now, because it's hearing that, it makes me think about it a little bit differently, that if you respect, embrace, and meet fear head on, then it goes back to what we were talking about, perception and, you know, who's responsible or optics. Those kind of lend themselves to kind of controlling the narrative. So when you address fear, when you respect fear, when you acknowledge that it's there, you then control the fear because you're not running from it. And I think, are you trying to say, or are you explaining from the perspective that if you don't acknowledge it, you don't respect it, then you then allow fear to take over, and then you really no longer have control of that fear. And then when you don't have control of the fear controls you, so then you lose control of yourself, and then you do something that's erratic versus saying, you know what, I acknowledge I'm doggone scared. Like, I don't know what the hell's about to happen, but I'm scared right now. You know what I'm saying? Right. You acknowledge it, then it gives you the comfort of saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to take control of this situation, or at least I'm going to take control of myself in this moment because I'm already acknowledging the fact that I am nervous. I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what might come out of this. But then I can rationally think about a plan of attack going forward so that I don't allow fear to paralyze me and paralyze me perpetually. And the reason I kind of went into that was, as black men, you know, there are so many things that impact us on a regular basis. You know, you hear a lot of the interactions with, you know, like different things with police or different things within our community, or, you know, perceptions on the job, or, you know, maybe in certain areas where you feel like you're one of the few in the room, so you're kind of fighting these uphill battles and everything. So you have all these things that kind of come into play, which for some of us that manifest in anger, you know, so then we're the angry brother, right? Or for some of us it's fear, so we're skittish and we're scared to take chances. But then for some of us, you know, who have control of that, then it's like, you know what? Yes, I acknowledge the fear. Yes, I acknowledge the anger, but neither one of those things are going to control me. I'm going to step in the right manner that allows me to be who I am and add the value that I'm supposed to bring to the world in its proper place. You see what I'm saying? And so, just interesting to really think about it, because, you know, we hear the concepts like fearless and, you know, fear not and all this kind of stuff. And from a spiritual perspective, yes, I understand God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. But he also gave us emotions, and he gave us sense. And there are moments that you should be scared, you know? You know?
Yes. You should be scared, which transitions to being cautious.
That's right.
Which will help you survive. And let's face it, being a father, you know, and a parent is the most difficult and most rewarding job that we're ever going to know.
That's right.
In my humble opinion. And so, being that father, being that parent, and being that leader, my joy, my fears, at times will be projected on my girls. And I choose, as much as I can, to project upon them the joys of this world. Not so much the fear, because that's transferable from me to them. So I try to stay resilient as much as I can. And being resilient, that is being comfortable with failure. Right? Because failure is just another way to inform me that something is not correct.
That's right.
My actions were not right. And so I figure out how to make it right the next time. So fathers, they have to be comfortable with failure, with fear, because if you're too fearful, you're paralyzed. You can't move. You won't act. However, if you are fearless, right? Well, now you're just throwing caution to the wind, and now you opened yourself up to more danger, right? And so you may not survive that engagement, whatever it is, or others with you may be harmed.
And it's powerful because we're speaking to Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Quinn. He's allowing us to call him Tony, so we're going to do that right now. But but it's interesting because when I hear you say that, that takes on a different meaning from someone who is just basically kind of going through a normal, typical life, so to speak, right? Someone who's been all over the world and combat situations and this and that, and seeing things from a different angle. When I hear you talk about fear, the fears that you may have experienced are life and death, not necessarily just for yourself, but for maybe dozens or hundreds or maybe even thousands of other men and women as well. And so it's it really takes on a different meaning, and that's where for me, paying attention to context really adds a lot of value because, as brothers, as fathers, as black men, we all have different backgrounds, and we all come from different places, even though we can all connect through the common bond of being brothers and being fathers. But even still, fear shows up differently for each and every one of us, and it's going to be on different levels. Fear for somebody might be like, I'm fearful of taking this entrepreneurial step and trying a new business, or I'm fearful of getting married, or I'm fearful because I'm about to have a kid and I really don't know what the heck I'm gonna do. It's just little things like that. But then the other part of it is someone like yourself is like, I might be fearful because we're under attack and we have to figure out a strategy, and if we don't embrace this fear but then also calm ourselves down and rationally think about this, lives are in danger. It's interesting, but it's something that it's like the whole concept of concepts and principles transcend circumstances. And so the 3 points that we talked about from your book are concepts or principles that regardless of your circumstance you can step back and really think about and apply and think and just approach from the perspective that this stuff really makes a difference, and it really matters, and it's something that we can really take heed to and apply to our lives right now.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, I am all about being practical, because I'm not a superhero. None of us are, and none of us are perfect. And so I make mistakes almost on a daily basis. Some of them are big and some of them are small.
That's right.
However, they are all learning. They're all informing me of future actions.
That's right.
That I will or will not take. And so I just try to be as practical as I can when I speak to people and I engage them, because when I give advice, I try to be someone who actually walks the walk as well as doing the talking, So I try to be both, I try to do as I say. And it's challenging to actually live the advice that you give to others.
That is. It is.
It's very challenging. I'm not always successful.
We're not. None of us are.
So, but I try as best I can to be that way, because every day is different.
Every day is different. Every day brings its own challenges. But at the end of the day, as long as we take responsibility for our actions, which you gave an example of, which was pretty profound. Back in the day when your mouth got ahead of you and you lost your scholarship, but at the end of the day, you took control of the situation. I got myself into this. I got to get myself out of it. The whole concept of taking responsibility. And then, some of the topics that we discussed, being, perception, who's responsible. It's all of our job to help create that perception. As far as optics, it's everybody's business to actually do right, but then to also make sure it looks like we're doing right to help shape the optics, because everybody's not going to deep dive. But then also, and this is extremely powerful here, really taking a moment to embrace the fear that happens. Don't allow it to overrun you, but meet it head on. Because once you meet it head on, once you voice your concern with it, then you can rationally think about a plan of action to go forward and to take in regards to your life. And so I guess now I'd like to, just based on your experience, based on, anything from the book, any good word that you have to the black fathers that are out there, man, like anything that you'd like to, kind of leave them with in regards to just life, man, anything that you can impart, man.
I would say, every day sacrifice yourself for who you want to be tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So every day sacrifice who you want to be tomorrow. So what that means is, if you got to cut out 6 hours of watching TV or time going out with the fellas, hanging out in the bar or whatever, or playing basketball or whatever that is, sacrifice that time to make yourself who you want to be tomorrow. Read, engage someone as a mentee or a mentor. Be present at your home with your kids, because again, we only get one shot at life.
That's right.
And there are many quotes out there people could use and say, but I just like to say, to all the fathers out there, that this is the best job and the most stressful job that you're ever going to have, of being a parent and being a father. And if you continue to sacrifice, right, who you are today for who you want to be tomorrow, you will make things much better for yourself and your family down the road. And understand this, that there's a legacy that was being written the moment you were born.
That's right.
Now, black fathers, we generally don't recognize that until it's late or too late, and it's all based on your perspective as to when you think it's too late. But the bottom line is that legacy is being written when you were born. And once you realize, or it becomes conscious to you, that you look into the eyes of your children that one day you're going to be gone, what is it that you're going to leave them with? What is it? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really have to be materialistic things, but understand that we all will pass away someday. And I know for me, I want to ensure that my daughters understand that I lived my life to the fullest. I demonstrated for them that this is what a man should be about. And also showing the act of love and kindness by volunteering my time, my efforts, and sometimes money, if that's necessary, for others to excel. Because as I tell my daughters, your gifts, right, your talents are not for you.
That's right.
They're for everyone else.
That's right.
Or else, why did God give them to you?
Fellas, your gifts are not for yourself. Your gifts are for everyone else. Realize that. Realize that. And so, Tony, my man, like, what's the best way that folks can get in contact with you? And also let us know, like, when is the book coming out? So again, the title of the book is Cruel America's Slow Burn to Conscious Dysfunction. Cruel America's Slow Burn to Conscious Dysfunction. When can the brothers grab a copy of the book, one, but then also how can folks get in touch with you?
Well, they can get in touch with me at qanthony.quinn@gmail.com.
Okay.
And that's my email address. And the book should be coming out here, if not by the end of this month, the first or second week of March.
Okay, well, actually, you know, we're recording this now, and this one actually will drop the beginning of March. So there's a possibility that Cruel America's Slow Burn to Conscious Dysfunction could actually be out by the time we release this podcast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And will they be able to find it on Amazon or your website, or where will they be able to find the book itself?
They will be able to find it on Amazon.
Okay.
So, you know, just type it in, the title, Cruel, America's Slow Burn to Conscious Dysfunction, and they'll be able to find it there. And hopefully, working with my team, we'll have a website set up by that time, and they'll be able to come to the website as well. And if we have the website up before this is released, I'll make sure I shoot it out to you.
Yeah,
so
put it in the show notes for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In the show notes. So, fellas, literally, you can get in touch with Tony, qanthony.quinn@gmail.com. I'll have that in the show notes. If the website is up by that time, we'll also have the details of that. But definitely be checking Amazon for Cruel America's Slow Burn to Conscious Dysfunction from Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Quinn. My brother, any parting words before we get off the interview today?
Yes, before I leave today, I would like to continue some of these shout-outs because I wrote them down, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, that they got their 15 minutes of fame, so to speak. So my publisher, Keith Sylvester of eBook Solutions, my illustrator, Miss Sophia Brown of So Danny Designs, Mr. Leon Jackson, the founder of Project Point 5. You know, he brought me into the nonprofit community, and so I've been there ever since. And so he's a great man. And Mr. Marvin Price, who's associated with the Fayetteville Housing Authority, who's leading seminars for those people that are living in our lowest income bracket. He's doing great things down there. Mr. Jimmy Watts, owner of State Farm Insurance in Columbus, Georgia, who's doing things with recently released incarcerated people coming out of jail, and with students learning how to drive. Shauna Lawson, another author of 2 books. Mr. Thomas Henley, another author, rising speaker, who works with me in the HBCUs, who come out and engage the student body. And Mr. Timothy Davis, a retired sergeant major, who continues to help his community in Florida by being a Pop Warner football coach and a mentor to young kids, and his staff and faculty of Morris College, where my team and I went in and to help the ROTC program there, and they embraced us there, and they made me and my team feel at home. And Miss Lenore Jackson, my partner there, who was my top volunteer that on my team, and she made things great. So I thank you, Mike, for this opportunity to have me on your show and your podcast, and for me to just basically rub up against an individual like yourself and all the prosperity that you experience, I hope and pray rub off on me and here in the near future, and I hope our paths cross again, and hopefully we'll get to work together on some things down the road.
Most definitely.
Because I would love to grab you as a speaker.
Man, I'd love to come. Look, you say the word and I'm there, man. I'm ready. You just say the word.
Okay.
Say the word and I get my ticket and I'm on. I'm coming.
Well, I tell you, it may be sooner than you think.
Hey, look at here, my brother. I'm looking forward to it. And I want to thank you, man, for sharing your story. Your book, your life is just an inspiration that I think a lot of the brothers can garner some wisdom from and really apply to their life, because the concept, Black Fathers Now, this is about bringing things to the table that brothers can apply to their lives right now to be better men. And being a better man, by being a better man, the byproduct of that is you ultimately become the best father that you can be. And that's what we're creating. We're trying to, kick the game up and, turn average black fatherhood as the normal to excellent black fatherhood being the normal. You know what I'm saying? We really want excellence in black fatherhood to be the new normal when it comes to us and our community. So I thank you for sharing your story, your book, and we'll have the information in the show notes for brothers to get in contact with you. And also thanks for the shout outs, man. And fellas, if you listen and some of those names ring a bell, reach out to some of those folks, those ladies, those fellas that Tony mentioned, because they're doing some great things in our world, and we really need to highlight them and support them, connect with them, and make this world a better place. And so, fellas, as always, this episode is being brought to you by BlackFamilyApparel.com. Visit BlackFamilyApparel.com, where you can grab some awesome apparel that celebrates the nuances of the black family. Also, visit BlackFathersNow.com. Subscribe to the podcast. You can subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Spotify. Any place you listen to podcasts, you can subscribe to Black Fathers Now. And definitely leave some comments. Let me know what you think about this episode with Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Quinn. And, until next time, fellas, be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always, always, always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.